Samothraces. Samothraces, a designation of the Thane gods worshipped at Samothracia and the Mysteries. They are considered as identical with the Caberi, Dioscuri, and Corybantes. Their names were mystical, denoting Plato, Ceres, or Proserpina, Bacchus, and Asclepius, or Hermes. Shamans, or Shamayans, an order of Buddhists among the Tartars, especially those of Siberia. They are possibly akin to the philosophers. Anciently known as Brahmanes, mistaken sometimes for Brahmins. They are all magicians, or rather sensitives or mediums artificially developed. At present, those who act as priests among the Tartars are generally very ignorant and far below the fakirs in knowledge and education. Both men and women may be shamans. The oracle of Apollo was at Delphos, the city of the Delphus, womb or abdomen. The temple was denominated the Omphalos, or navel. The symbols are female and lunary, reminding us that the Arcadians were called Proselani. Don't try to do an Italian accent. Proselani, pre-Hellenistic, or more ancient than the period when Ionian and Olympian lunar worship was introduced. And what we just read before, from the accounts of Strabo and Megasthenes, who visited Polybothras, it would seem that the persons termed by him Samanian or Brahmane priests were simply Buddhists. What if I do this? This singularly subtle replies of the Samanian or Brahman philosophers in their interview with the conqueror will be found to contain the spirit of the Buddhist doctrine, remarks Ufam. See the History and Doctrine of Buddhism and Hale's Chronology, Volume 3. Means of the sacrificial prayers, the mantras. This liquor is supposed to be transformed on the spot into real soma, or the angel, and even into Brahma himself. Some missionaries have expressed themselves very indignantly about this ceremony. The more so that, generally speaking, the Brahmins use kind of spirituous liquor as a substitute. But do the Christians believe less fervently in the transubstantiation of the communion wine into the blood of Christ, because this wine happens to be more or less spirituous, is not the idea of the symbol attached to it the same? But the missionaries say that this hour of soma drinking is the golden hour of Satan, who lurks at the bottom of the Hindu sacrificial cup. In their turn, the heathen may well ask the missionaries what sort of a spirit lurks at the bottom of the sacrificial beer bottle. That evangelical New York journal, The Independent, says, a late English traveler found a simple-minded Baptist mission church in far-off Burma, using for the communion service, and we doubt not, with God's blessing, Bass's pale ale instead of wine. Circumstances alter cases, it seems. Spirit. The lack of any mutual agreement between writers in the use of this word has resulted in dire confusion. It is commonly made synonymous with soul, and the lexicographers countenance the usage. This is the natural result of our ignorance of the other word, and repudiation of the classification adopted by the ancients. Elsewhere, we attempt to make clear the distinction between the terms spirit and soul. There are no more important passages in this work. Meanwhile, we will only add that spirit is the nous of Plato, the immortal, immaterial, and purely divine principle in man, the crown of the human triad, whereas soul is the psyche, or the nephesh of the Bible, the vital principle, or the breath of life, which every animal, down to the infusoria, shares with man. And the translated Bible, it stands indifferently for life, blood, and soul. Let us not kill his nephesh, says the original text. Let us not kill him. Translate the Christians, Genesis 37:21, and so on. Theosophists in the medieval ages, it was the name by which were known the disciples of Paracelsus of the 16th century, the so-called fire philosophers, or philosophy per ignem, as well as the Platonists. They regarded the soul, psyche, I don't know how you pronounce it, and the divine spirit, nous, as a particle of the great Arcos, a fire taken from the eternal ocean of light. The Theosophical Society, to which these volumes are dedicated by the author as a mark of affectionate regard, was organized at New York in 1875. The object of its founders was to experiment practically in the occult powers of nature and to collect and disseminate among Christians information about the Oriental religious philosophies. Later, it has determined to spread among the poor, benighted heathen. Such evidences as to the practical results of Christianity, as will at least give both sides of the story to the communities among which missionaries are at work. With this view, it has established relations with associations and individuals throughout the East, to whom it furnishes authenticated reports of the ecclesiastical crimes, and misdemeanors, schisms, and heresies, controversies and litigations, doctrinal differences and biblical criticisms, and revisions with which the press of Christian Europe and America constantly teems. Christendom has been long and minutely informed of the degradation and brutishness into which Buddhism, Brahmanism, and Confucianism have plunged their deluded votaries, and many millions have been lavished upon foreign missions under such false representations. The Theosophical Society, seeing daily exemplifications of this very state of things as the sequence of Christian teaching and example. The latter especially thought it simple justice to make the facts known in Palestine, India, Ceylon, Kashmir, Tartary, Tibet, China, and Japan, in all which countries it has influential correspondence. It may also in time have much to say about the conduct of the missionaries to those who contribute to their support. Hold on one second. Theurgist. Theurgist, from Theos, God, and ergon, work. The first school of practical theurgy in the Christian period was founded by Iamblichus among the Alexandrian Platonists, but the priests attached to the temples of Egypt, Assyria, and Babylonia, and who took an active part in the evocations of the gods during the sacred mysteries, were known by this name from the earliest archaic period. The purpose of it was to make spirits visible to the eyes of mortals. A theurgist was one expert in the esoteric learning of the sanctuaries of all the great countries. The Neoplatonists of the school of Iamblichus were called theurgists, for they performed the so-called ceremonial magic and evoked the spirits of the departed heroes, gods, and daimonia, divine spiritual entities. In the rare cases when the presence of a tangible and visible spirit was required, the theurgist had to furnish the weird apparition with a portion of his own flesh and blood. He had to perform the theopoeia, or the creation of gods, by a mysterious process well known to the modern fakirs and initiated Brahmins of India. I don't know if I can do this from over here. This is what is said in the Book of Evocations of the Pagodas. It shows the perfect identity of rites and ceremonial between the oldest Brahmanic theurgy and that of the Alexandrian Platonists. The Brahman Grihasta, the evocator, must be in a state of complete purity before he ventures to call forth the Pitris. After having prepared a lamp, some sandal, incense, etc., and having traced the magic circles taught to him by the superior guru in order to keep away bad spirits, he ceases to breathe and calls the fire to his help to disperse the body. He pronounces a certain number of times the sacred word, and his soul escapes from his body, and his body disappears, and the soul of the evoked spirit descends into the double body and animates it. Then his Grihasta's soul re-enters into his body, whose subtle particles have again been aggregating After having formed of their emanations an aerial body, to the spirit he evoked. And now that he has formed for the Pitri a body with the particles, the most essential and pure of his own, the Grihasta is allowed, after the ceremonial sacrifice is over, to converse with the souls of the ancestors and the Pitris, and offer them questions on the mysteries of the being and the transformations of the imperishable. Then, after having blown out his lamp, he must light it again and set at liberty the bad spirits, shut out from the place by the magical circles, and leave the sanctuary of the Pitris. Book of Brahmanical Evocations, Part 3. The school of Iamblichus was distinct from that of Plotinus and Porphyry, who were strongly against ceremonial magic and practical theurgy, as dangerous, though these two eminent men firmly believed in both. The theurgic or benevolent magic, the Goetic, or dark and evil necromancy, were alike in preeminent repute during the first century of the Christian era, but never have any of the highly moral and pious philosophers, whose fame has descended to us spotless of any evil deed, practiced any other kind of magic than the theurgic or benevolent, as Bulwer Lytton terms it. Whoever is acquainted with the nature of divinely luminous appearances, phasmata, knows also on what account it is requisite to abstain from all birds, animal food, and especially for him who hastens to be liberated from terrestrial concerns and to be established with the celestial gods, says Porphyry. Though he refused to practice theurgy himself, Porphyry, in his life of Plotinus, mentions a priest of Egypt who, at the request of a certain friend of Plotinus, which friend was perhaps Porphyry himself, remarks T. Taylor, exhibited to Plotinus in the temple of Isis at Rome, the familiar daemon, or in modern language, the guardian angel of that philosopher. The popular prevailing idea was that the theurgists, as well as the magicians, worked wonders, such as evoking the souls or shadows of the heroes and gods, and doing other thaumaturgic works by supernatural powers. Yajna. The Yajna, says the Brahmins, exists from eternity. For it proceeded forth from the Supreme One, the Brahma Prajapati, in whom it lay dormant from no beginning. It is the key to the Trividya, the thrice sacred science, contained in the Rig verses, which teaches the yagus, or sacrificial mysteries. The yajna exists as an invisible thing at all times. It is like the latent power of electricity in an electrifying machine, requiring only the operation of a suitable apparatus in order to be elicited. It is supposed to extend from the Ahavaniya, or sacrificial fire, to the heavens. forming a bridge or ladder by means of which the sacrificer can communicate with the world of gods and spirits and even ascend when alive to their abodes. Aitareya Brahman. Introduction. This yajna is again one of the forms of the akasa, and the mystic word calling it into existence and pronounced mentally by the initiated priest is the lost word. Receiving impulse through willpower. To complete the list, we will now add that in the course of the following chapters, whenever we use the term archaic, we mean before the time of Pythagoras, when ancient, before the time of Mahomet, and when medieval, maybe it's pronounced differently, medieval. The period between Mahomet and Martin Luther, it will only be necessary to infringe the rule when from time to time we may have to speak of nations of a pre-Pythagorean antiquity, and will adopt the common custom of calling them ancient. Before closing this initial chapter, we venture to say a few words in explanation of the plan of this work. Its object is not to force upon the public the personal views or theories of its author, nor has it the pretensions of a scientific work, which aims at creating a revolution in some departments of thought. It is rather a brief summary of the religions, philosophies, and universal traditions of humankind, and the exegesis of the same. In the, you could also say, exegesis of the same, in the spirit of those secret doctrines, of which none, thanks to prejudice and bigotry, have reached Christendom in so unmutilated a form as to secure it a fair judgment, since the days of the unlucky medieval philosophers, the last to write upon these secret doctrines, of which they were the depositaries. Few men have dared to brave persecution and prejudice by placing their knowledge upon record, and these few have never, as a rule, written for the public, but only for those who, of their own and succeeding times, who possess the key to their own jargon, the key to their jargon. The multitude, not understanding them or their doctrines, have been accustomed to regard them as, en masse, as either charlatans or dreamers. Hence the unmerited contempt into which the study of the noblest of sciences, that of the spiritual man, has gradually fallen. In undertaking to inquire into the assumed infallibility of modern science and theology, the author has been forced, even at the risk of being thought discursive, to make constant comparison to the ideas, achievements, and pretensions of their respective representatives with those of the ancient philosophers and religious teachers. Things the most widely separated as to time have thus been brought into immediate juxtaposition, for only thus could the priority and parentage of discoveries and dogmas be determined. In discussing the merits of our scientific contemporaries, their own confessions of failure in experimental research, of baffling mysteries, of missing links in their chains of theory, of inability to comprehend natural phenomena, of ignorance of the laws of the causal world, have furnished the basis for the present study. Especially since psychology has been so much neglected and the East is far away that few of our investigators will ever get there to study that science where alone it is understood. We will review the speculations and policy of noted authorities in connection with those modern psychological phenomena which began at Rochester and have now overspread the world. We wish to show how inevitable were the innumerable failures and how they must continue until these pretended authorities of the West go to the Brahmins and Lamaists of the far Orient and respectfully ask them to impart the alphabet of true science. We have laid no charge against scientists that is not supported by their own published admissions, and if our citations from the records of antiquity rob some of what they have hitherto viewed, as well as earned laurels, the fault is not ours but truth's. No man worthy of the name of philosopher would care to wear honors that rightfully belong to another. Deeply sensible of the titanic struggle that is now in progress between materialism and the spiritual aspirations of mankind, our constant endeavor has been to gather into our several chapters, like weapons into armories, every fact and argument that can be used to aid the latter in defeating the former. Sickly and deformed child as it now is. The materialism of today is born of the brutal yesterday. Unless its growth is arrested, it may become our master. It is the bastard progeny of the French Revolution and its reaction against ages of religious bigotry and repression. To prevent the crushing of these spiritual aspirations, the blighting of these hopes, and the deadening of that intuition which teaches us of a God and a hereafter, we must show our false theologies in their naked deformity and distinguish between divine religion and human dogmas. Our voice is raised for spiritual freedom, and our plea made for the enfranchisement from all tyranny, whether of science or theology. art thou, O God, the universal's Father. Holy art thou, O God, whose will perfects itself by means of its own powers. Holy art thou, O God, who willest to be known and art known by thine own. Holy art thou, who didst by word make to consist the things that are. Holy art thou, of whom all nature hath been made an image. Holy art thou, whose from nature hath never made. Holy art thou, more powerful than all power. Holy art thou, transcending all preeminence. Holy art thou, thou better than all praise. Accept my reason's offerings pure, from soul and heart for aye stretched up to thee, O thou unutterable, unspeakable, whose name naught but the silence can express. Give ear to me who pray that I may ne'er of gnosis fail, gnosis which is our common being's nature, and fill me with thy power, and with this grace of thine, that I may give the light to those in ignorance of the race, my brethren and thy sons. For this cause I believe, and I bear witness, I go to life and light. Blessed art thou, O Father, thy man would wholly be as thou art holy, e'en as thou gavest him thy full authority to be. Holy art thou, O God, whose will perfects itself by means of its own power. He is himself, both things that are and things that are not. The things that are he hath made manifest. He keepeth things that are not in himself. He is the God beyond all name, he the unmanifest, he the most manifest, he whom the mind alone can contemplate, he visible unto the eyes as well. He is the one of no body, the one of many bodies, nay, rather, he is he of every body. Naught is there which he is not, for all are he, and he is all. Let every nature of the world receive the utterance of my hymn. Open thou earth, let every bolt of the abyss be drawn for me. Stir not, ye trees, I am about to hymn creation's Lord, both all and one. Ye heavens open, and ye winds stay still, and let God's deathless sphere receive my word. For I will sing the praise of him who founded all, who fixed the earth and hung up heaven, and gave command that ocean should afford sweet water to the earth, to both those parts that are inhabited and those that are not, for the support and use of every man, who made the fire to shine for gods and men for every act. Let us together all give praise to him, sublime above the heavens, of every nature Lord. 'Tis he who is the eye of mind. May he accept the praise of these my powers. Ye powers that are within me, him, the one and all, sing with my will. Powers all that are within me. O blessed Gnosis, be thee illumined, hymning through thee the light that mind alone can see. I joy in joy of mind. Sing with me praises, all ye powers. Sing praise, my self-control. Sing thou through me my righteousness.